Photo. Looking at these curled photographs, I see faces that have gone out from that brief click of shutter and light, some into life and some into no life, and some into death. Mother, what did it matter if that purse you held contained nothing but air? So much that was yours steeps in the attic. Pictures, china, summer dresses. Saying when confronted, death is the absence of waiting. Mother, what did it matter if that babe in your arms is now writing this poem? Nocturne. Governments only falter. Hands gripping chairs are dying in evening not to turn white-knuckled again. Within shadows, our keepsakes, these black pearls of wishing, resting on steps, have been waiting forever. In a clenched fist, the withering of seed time. Sappho, Blake, Eliot. Much of the beauty gone. The moon is disfigured, our galleries in rubble, and Iago wishes to meet us for coffee. Beyond these trees, the wind suffs eternal lyrics of death to the frightened among us. Unvanished again, here we sit on the tracks of this siding, baggage loaded, connections all made. In these freight yard puddles, a pounding of oceans. This poem is called Suicide Note, and it begins with the dedication for Ed, dead at 19. This one life stung senseless and mauled by the world till the nerve shafts bloom into nightshade. I am famished the length and breadth of my mind. I am sick where my clothes cling. I am blubber and disgust. Too quiet the cats of my future are, flailing into place every hair they can't live without tasting. Yet it is beautiful. Vines outside, twining the rain spout, pencil, bike spoke, food scraps, dirt under my nails. Even pain and the memories to be so neatly baled and shelved where I ache, to buy for myself the gimmick of death. Epitaph for a burdensome cat. Jenny, old Siamese, grimalkin, feline residence without tone in your dotage. I find your fur on the armchairs and in parts of the basement obscures the soul. Ghost cat finally dead. What could we do but attend you as we attend to the house, homes having chores and maintenance, routines to be followed? We thought at times you would outlive us all, simply not die as other things must. So often you skirted death, the will to annoyance giving you strength to endure your heart's winter fed on so long, and runny eyes resistant to vet salve. Your heart's winter keen to stay hidden in the attic or basement or slinking between. Your body's sprouting of sores, your infrequent naps by the fire. You hated the other cats, capitulated captives in your own image, dragging their dirty paws across the paths of your life. The food in the bowl you found intolerable. You hated our laps, even in your quiet moods, curled, dreaming, your feet shaking, wanting to be a cat of the brown fields, stalking at night ancient traditional enemies. So I found you, death, smell on your breath, soaked in hemorrhage blood, the infection systemic, rampant enough to extinguish your eyes. We chipped in to have you examined, wishing you saved, prolonged in your ninth life, knowledge of the house's walls and sound of our footsteps. But the bill would have soared into the hundreds. For $7.50 apiece, we put you to sleep. In Portland, a woman looks from her window. She thinks of jumping from her sandstone ledge, not to die, not to flutter madly like a shotgun pheasant, but to float down through the drafts gently as wood smoke, to a landing silent as the leaking of warmth from the hands while napping. But what you see in poems delving upward from the page and hear rattle in the silly of your lungs is the past without proof. Severed digits from a surgeon's hands retracting the liver in search of the heart. Crisscross streets and sidewalks with urine trickling from the pant legs of drunks moored in doorways. Buildings and boredom distill into haze. Beautiful once, she undressed in a field, undoing her stockings with manicured fingers. Cold day in November. Knuckles aching for the sea so far away it cannot be heard. Today is clear to the limits of sight. The substance of leaves departs from itself. A dog with torn ears pees on my poppies, still yellow and open in defiance of frost. Reagan to summit, exultant, waves the world to a cellar of ice. Flashes the camera his moron's grin. Paper on the curb blows to the pasture of human debris. Who has acquired my figments of light? I think we split the nails of our thoughts, our heaps of ash on a blade of darkness, till troops of sparrows erase from your mind the tablet of dusk. To the pair on my windowsill guarding reality. For an hour I have watched you refuse to move, to speak, or change even slightly to a bunch of grapes. But if you sang Heidi-ho, flew home for Christmas, needed new clothes, or began to snore, if you could reason with the cat, hold a job, write checks, iron shirts, if you ate something other than sun, if you said to me, friend, I will pluck you when you sleep, I would never rest. If you buried your dead, I'd find mourners and attend. Yet, there you sit and here I stand, each of us fading in the temper of our skins. The Elector's Hymn, November 1984. Having left our asses fall to the ground to sprout in the moonlight pimples and hair, we water them down with the phlegm of desire as the blessings of greed find us through prayer. And having increased manifestly the weight and girth of these our balls, which teem with the lives we hate before birth, and tied to our fingers the strings of forgetting, and mashed our eyes for the habit of seeing, having eaten and slept and photographed well, having screwed the wife and the kids, the dog and the cat, and the dog again, and having lain out under the stars and vowed to improve them, and having kicked in the groin all things weaker than ourselves, and having envied unto tears the spider's jaws. Having done this and blazed with neutrons our way into death, we sing our songs to the infinite tit, then slash it and eat it, and anoint with pus our hearts so they wither. This poem is called The Madman is Waiting. Inside the neatly folded napkins, inside the apple, in textures the ceiling has developed with age. Waiting by ash cans, by the green hedges, The madman is waiting in the seed pods of weeds, in the light of eyes. The sky I see from this upstairs window, clouds turned by the sun into light and dark fingers, ligatures trussing the city in darkness, luxated knots. Towers start blinking, the hills almost shimmer, flourish a last time and depart. Rain sires its wet gloom, slicking the roof where the suicide stands. Since time began, these shingles have waited his blown husk, leaped to the wind, his loss of plum scent elusive since childhood. This interjection, this parabasis of the will to be healed, rises from murmurs begotten by bodies in the leg-crushing traps all history has died from. Mostly as sane, as Lear was sane, but mad with the fact as the storm raged, shuddered as the cum spasm shudders, anchors in memory and grows. A bum proposal. With bodies and minds exquisitely garbled, you slump in your leavings and ripen clothes to dream the Eden of dumpsters with club cars. Missing teeth, legs, and bits of your ears, you are slack-jawed, bashed in the head, bleeding from the scalp, non-vertical even while standing. You were the drunken rabble, the groundlings, the inadvertent sinkers of wooden ships. Oh, receivers of knife wounds, you are local color. So, I think you should be paid, applauded in your work, for the skills you bring to the pageant of dying. This poem is called New Year's Eve, 1985, and goes like this. And so, farewell to Orwell's year, and to the suspect verbs, to love, to hate. Drunk as I am, I ponder Columbus. Didn't know where he was going. On returning home, didn't know where he'd been. The truth is, I am cold and shall die white with it. The truth is, I mistreat time. The truth is, a demented Italian steered wrong by his stars. But back to the party, wearing funny hats in a room full of noise. Back to father and his whiskey, and I with my gin. A remarkable thing, this changing of years. Finally, midnight. Finally, the ball in Times Square falling, its descent cheered by the crowd on TV. I think I feel both drunker and sadder. Outside, the river flows still, daffy for the sea. The truth is, I am scared and can lose my way in a bowl full of fruit. The truth is only a species of dust, or wishes composed at night in the guts. Orgasm. Too much to bear, this black sky blistered with melted stars. It is sweet to want nothing, to love the sound of one's mind not barking. Mozart, under breath, the notes tattooed on an insect's wing. Finished leaves beautifully crushed by the weight of air. An orange moon trellised in memory, lighting at night the scattered wits. Then it all dissolves to separate worlds oozed from the bone and monstrous hearts, till again the senses wince when you use them. This poem is called Flat. In the winter-killed dawn and cold, tearing the lungs into snowflakes, day falls from the night, meticulous and grieved. A few cars on the streets, a few birds hungry in the arbor and brittle twigs. Rain that outlives us gushing through the collapsed straw of our spines. Moisture deforming every posture we have ever dreamed. There is too much boredom in the world, endurance past coping, till flesh explodes back into mud. I bore, you bore, we bore. How heavy we are with the pianos of memory. How ruptured by the moon cemented in orbit. From the church where the Mexican Indians prayed, there would come the faded bloom of infinite sighing. From an archway of tanned stone, from a belfry clogged by skeleton priests, there would drift weight without mass and songs forsaken by language and damned. Now, in summer, 11 years later, even the dead grass augments desire. Sunlight dapples the softball field while all these trees turn brutally green. Flickers. Moon and rhythms are finished by morning. To what end these arms have entwined from themselves faithless worlds into ash, maybe flesh knows. Neither creaking joists in the attic nor the logic of dreams where bones speak to themselves the power of dust. Yet the heart is in terror. Its own blood bursting forth from the temples, bowls full of memory, unfillable basins like rain into oceans. These bodies speaking past how many candles I cannot count them. Bodies and minds, little good they did us. Love mistaken for silence or feathery slash to be burned, and this bed for a field driven to extinction like the course of a river or a primitive mammal unable to cope. But in flickers I have seen you, long and white as an infinite petal, enveloping calyx from a forest more lush than existence is. These things behind us whisk by in a raindrop, so I hold you as long as the path of spent light. La petite mort. To exploding suns, God was an instant. This poem is called Rubinstein in Venice and is dedicated to Arthur Rubinstein, the pianist. At 91, he speaks into the camera and past it, to a sky and canal as perfectly blended as the colors in prisms. He has just watched glass being blown and etched into objects so painfully fragile they will never break. He says he will die soon. Plazas and echoes, the endurance of birds, decaying limestone, frescoes and ledges, the endlessly brief largo of water in motion, unhurried in these trenches, lapping his feet. Maestro, you have read, it seems, the braille of your bones, where notes learn structure, and out of your fingertips it still comes, like tears flicked from our fingers at dawn, beautiful drainage from the wound of living. And I love you, because in your wrinkled face you are childlike, the musician I'm not, adjusting your white skimmer in a little wind. You say, hands are best, they make things for the mind. You say, you will die soon, or rather that your life is ending. See how rust eats at the rain and air, and flame quenches the wind. This poem is titled, "At a Literary Reception, I Sign a Petition Seeking a William Carlos Williams Commemorative Stamp." Near a marshy savanna, or on the inexorable tundra of Europe, which daily pulled them along, I imagine our slope-browed ancestors shit and rot on their breath, were feverish with blood scent after killing a deer. They'd leave the tizzik boughs to their circling dogs, and for all I know, on fermented bark turn bilious and smug. Then stand and extract in melodious grunts the essence of art and its function. Abstract by torchlight Willendorf Venuses and cave paintings in Spain. We are laconic over the bean dip, over the cheeses, apple slices, and wine, over the cauliflower and thinly sliced rings of bologna. One so desires to be frightfully literate. The heart in the chest secretly muses, oh, to be a recognized genius to a nation of idiots. One wishes not to be dull, or, if dull, undetectably so. The MFA student says she reads at night and goes mad in winter. On a drop-leaf table in this starkly furnished, elegant room, the Williams petition lies beside a new biography, thick and definitive, just right for the bedside or omnivorous wall of books in the study. Asphodel in history, with how his eyes roved through the skirts of his longing, and the visits to Pound, who was gathering the fuel of his silence, and like Rilke, hunting his angels. The grasping for an American idiom captured now, like someone saying goodbye in a picture. And the stamp, when it's issued, another farewell, brief with human duration. We affixed our names and went home, demanding en masse an official response. I too am to blame. One needs only to love to extinction, like being in church with acolytes snuffing the candles, as if the film had snapped, only whiteness filling the screen in mid-frame. The next four poems have a Chinese sage, Lao Tzu, in common and form a little series. The first one is called The Divination. Then sat Lao Tzu in the fly's path, without buttocks, without reason, thinking the colorless blue thoughts of inaction, dreaming the slow pirouette of boats floating a river to the dry sea. Then stood Lao Tzu, not without all parts of a man. Then stood he in China some BC date. Then cocked he his arm, let fly the yarrow stalks, listened and heard them fall in these words. And the second one is called Written for the Moth Born in My Bisquick. This I know from the sound of rain, that Lao Tzu, thinking it over, stabbed himself with the mind's knife pulled from the world, swooned then, drunken into space, pratfell laughing through comets and stars, and wound up here, dropped from the sky. As these miller moths flutter from nowhere, beacons of light, gripped like us in the unexplained void, their hearts leap from their eyes when I crush them. Life is affirmed by something else dying. Reality is brief. A hirsute of dreams triggered by snow, or by the cat circling a new place to nap, one unretracted claw snagging the rug and our bones from the backlots of death. Grouse. How gently you part before the knife, sun-seeking bowels reeking now with a memory of feathers, fanning the flames of your ruined guts, and I only feel the light slowing down, drip from the pines and cling a while to your slippery bones. As Lao Tzu felt himself skate on the ice past his need to awaken, yet trapped between goose eggs, inexpressively heavy and poised on his eyes. And the fourth one, a stroll with the sage. For 1,000 years, Lao Tzu, disguised as nothing, mimicked for laughs the pebble's voice caught in the heel of the leper's shoe. And to do this, he said, "Out with my bones which hurt from not breaking, and out with my teeth which assemble my food." And lastly, after hanging his robe on the shelf of his heart, he sank to the ground as though riding on worms.